Today is the day for Daredevil Born Again, and we are finally here, and I thought, what better way to celebrate than another character breakdown? If you've been keeping up, I've done one for Muse, White Tiger, Bullseye, Karen Page, and a couple others. But today, it is all about Franklin Foggy Nelson. We all know him as the best friend to Daredevil, and, just one of the avocados at law that we all love and cherish. But did you know that he's actually been around since the 60s? His first appearance was actually in Daredevil #1 in 1964. So, if it isn't obvious, we are starting from the beginning. Foggy started off his life as an underdog, and, that continued to be just an underdog. He was raised by his father and stepmother after his ruthless mother, Rosalind Razor Sharp, abandoned the family to focus on her legal career. Although neglected by his biological mother, Foggy developed a strong interest in law and eventually gained acceptance into Columbia University's pre-law program in New York City. At Columbia, Foggy faced relentless bullying, even from members of his own fraternity like Roger Peterson, who went by Porkchop. Fortunately, he found protection in Matt Murdock, a fellow law student and future best friend and Daredevil. Foggy disapproved of Matt's relationship of Elektra Nachos, believing her to be dangerous, and boy, oh boy, was that correct. So I feel like Matt should have known, pretty early on that Foggy knew what he's about. The two went on to attend Harvard Law, where they took their bar exams. During this time, Foggy exposed a professor for plagiarism, bringing the teacher down even after he was threatened by the teacher to interfere with his bar results. While navigating the situation, Foggy witnessed Wilson Fisk, the kingpin, viciously beating the criminal Cruel, whose real name is Victor Crueler. To ensure that there was no witnesses, Fisk had Foggy drugged, erasing his memory of the incident. However, the event lingered in Foggy's subconscious, fueling his desire for justice and shaping his career as a lawyer. The origins of his fondness for bow ties, though, that's neither here nor there. Back to Foggy's relationship with Matt, aka Daredevil. This was his best friend. Despite their occasional separations of the years, their bond remains strong since their law school days. With Matt by his side, Foggy also gains the protection of Daredevil, whether he knew it or not. Karen Page, though, not reciprocating Foggy's romantic feelings, is another person he can rely on, and they share mutual trust in difficult times. After becoming fully licensed attorneys, Foggy and Matt established the law firm of Nelson & Murdock with financial support from Foggy's parents and hired Karen Page as their secretary. While Foggy pursued a romantic relationship with Karen, or at least tried to, he also maintained ties with his ex-girlfriend, Deborah Harris, who had been incarcerated for her involvement in a failed plot to assassinate the mayor of New York, despite her role in helping to thwart the plot in Daredevil's assistance. Ultimately, Karen fell for Matt, not Foggy, as we can all tell. One of the firm's first clients was the Fantastic Four, who sought help with the lease for their headquarters in the Baxter Building. Another early client was Zebediah Kilgrave, the Purple Man. For those who don't read the comics, it's David Tennant and Jessica Jones, who kidnapped Karen, because that's what always happens to Karen. That was her thing, I guess. Leland Owsley, a corrupt Wall Street financier who later developed a serum that gave him the ability to fly, attempting to hire the firm, but once Foggy and Matt uncovered his true identity, they had him arrested and imprisoned. Which is, I guess that happens. Matt's secret identity often put Foggy in life-threatening situations. One such instance occurred when Foggy visited a wax museum with his friends and got caught in the middle of a fight between Daredevil, Ox, and the Eel, which resulted in him being hospitalized. After recovering, Foggy returned to work, where he assisted Namor, the Mariner, in preventing the surface world from harming his underwater kingdom. Foggy then took on a case for Wilbur Day, a former Caxton Laboratories employee whose patents for hydraulic lifts had been stolen by his boss, Carl Caxton. Foggy was once mistaken for Daredevil when Spider-Man tracked the superhero back to Nelson & Murdock's offices. Assuming that Matt, the blind guy, couldn't be Daredevil, Spider-Man focused his suspicion on Foggy. In an attempt to impress Karen, Foggy didn't deny the accusation and even went so far as to buy a Daredevil costume from costume designer Melvin Potter. Potter, who disliked superheroes, agreed to design the costume but wanted to test its durability. He convinced Foggy to fight him, claiming it would impress Karen. Potter took on the persona of Gladiator, making the fight as intense as possible, nearly killing Foggy before the real Daredevil intervened and saved him. Foggy admitted to the ruse, but was upset when Karen ended up with Matt's twin brother, Mike, who's actually just Matt's third identity, as he been the one believed to be Daredevil. Later, Foggy was elected for New York City District Attorney and appointed Matt his assistant. His campaign was disrupted by the Jester, who, side note, I think that's who Matthew Lillard is going to be in Daredevil Season 2, was hired by mayoral candidate Richard Raleigh? I don't know. Who wanted a more controllable DA. Daredevil defeated the Jester, and Raleigh was killed by the Man-Monster during an encounter with Spider-Man. Nelson's tenure as DA hit a snag when one of his staff members, Roy Hollis, turned out to be the supervillain known as Crime Wave. His reputation temporarily tarnished. Foggy had great success in persecuting the criminals, costumed or not, mostly costumed, of New York City. Things were going so well that he contemplated an eventual gubernatorial campaign. Unfortunately, all the success and ambition came crashing down when Foggy was blackmailed by a time-traveling android, Mr. Klein, hoping to preempt future events by unfairly prosecuting Daredevil's friend, Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, on false murder charges. Matt defended her and cleared her of all charges. The case was a black mark on Foggy's legal representation and destroyed any chance he had for becoming governor. Ashamed of the actions, Nelson contemplated resigning as DA, but was dissuaded by Murdock. Months later, Nelson was targeted for assassination while investigating Mandrill's Black Spectre terrorists. He survived, but was abducted by Phil Sterling, now Deathstalker, who sought secrets uncovered by Nelson's activist sister Candace. That is a hard sentence to say. Daredevil rescued both Nelson siblings, of course. Foggy's brilliant legal mind was coveted by both the good guys and the bad. Nick Fury asked him to serve on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s board of directors, but a sentient dreadnought robot abducted Nelson for the subversive Hydra. Hydra also captured Daredevil and Black Widow, but Nelson freed them to defeat Dreadnought and his comrades. Foggy ultimately declined S.H.I.E.L.D.'s offer. In an attempt to gain some popularity, Foggy promoted the capabilities of the WHO, the Worldwide Habitual Offenders computer, only for it to malfunction and become dangerous before Spider-Man destroyed it. Spider-Man's all up in this lore with Foggy, and I love it. It seemed like the poor guy just couldn't catch a break for this situation, but when it rains, it pours. During his re-election campaign for district attorney, Foggy was once again targeted by the Jester, who was once again stopped by Daredevil, and ultimately lost to Blake Tower. After this loss, Foggy briefly opened storefront legal services, but it failed due to his financial mismanagement. He later reestablished Nelson and Murdock with Matt. During this period, Kingpin sent Elektra to assassinate Foggy, but she refused to kill someone who's a friend of Matt's, which, that's nice. While investigating Glen Industries' wrongdoings, Foggy inadvertently gained a criminal reputation as Guts Nelson, but managed to avoid the worst of the fallout with Daredevil's assistant. After Nelson and Deborah were married, she was kidnapped by an associate of the Purple Man. The two soon divorced because their differing notions of societal success, and Deborah was drawn to Nelson's latest client, Micah Sin, brutal ruler of a tribe who was descended from British royalty. The second iteration of Nelson and Murdock partnership came to an end when the Kingpin learned that Murdock was Daredevil, and Fisk made Matt's life a living hell, and Foggy worked to defend his friend from the false bribery charges. Nelson received multiple job offers and began dating photographer Gloriana O'Brien, who he calls Glory, Murdock's former flame and relative of Deborah's, which is spicy. Nelson took a position with Kelso Industrials, but resigned when it became clear that Kelso was in the kingpin's pocket. Matt opened his own law clinic, acting as advisor to the victims of Kelso's illegal chemical dumping. Nelson and Murdock was reopened for a third time, and everything seemed to be back to normal when reporter Sarah Harrington tried to expose Daredevil's secret identity, which led to Daredevil faking Matt Murdock's death. Nelson later believed his friend to be dead until he was saved by Daredevil, who suffered a nervous breakdown, thus revealing his true identity to his best friend in the world. Although enraged that Murdock had kept such a secret for so long, Nelson nevertheless stood by his friend. After Murdock's recovery, his supposed death was attributed to the SHIELD operation. They were then recruited by Foggy's long-absent mother, Rosalind Razor Sharp, to start a new firm called Sharp, Nelson, and Murdock. Their first client was Daredevil's nemesis, Mr. Hyde. More difficulties arose when Foggy started dating Liz Osborne, the parent widow of Harry Osborne, and incurred in the wrath of both Mysterio and the Green Goblin. In particular, Mysterio manipulated Nelson into pursuing client Lydia McKenzie, then framed him for her murder. Sharp fired her son, and Murdock resigned in protest. When the Daily Globe exposed Daredevil's secret identity, Nelson supported his friend during the crisis, advising him to sue the Globe rather than admit the truth and face legal repercussions from years of deception. Foggy's death was faked by Kingpin's estranged wife, Vanessa Fisk, after he visited Murdock in prison. Entering the witness protection in Philadelphia as Everett Williams, Nelson was targeted by mobsters, but rescued by hand ninjas commanded by Pagan, a Skrull impersonating Elektra. When Murdock escaped prison to clear his name, Nelson revealed the deception and, with fellow attorney Becky Blake, cleared Murdock of criminal charges, and the three formed a new firm, Nelson, Blake, and Murdock. To Nelson's dismay, one of their first clients was also the first villain he had fought, Melvin Potter, drugged into insanity by Mr. Fear. Mr. Fear had arranged for Mila Donovan, Matt's love interest, to be drugged. Everyone gets drugged here. The firm later faced potential scandal from criminal Lady Bullseye's actions. Foggy and Matt have since established another new firm that specializes in assisting superhuman clients. However, due to Murdock's notoriety as Daredevil, they often serve as legal consultants rather than trial attorneys. So, this is the life of Foggy. And as you can see, he does not die in the comics. I just want to point that out. So I don't have any theories for him in Daredevil Born Again, but you have to let me know in the comments what your theories are. I don't want him to die. If he dies, I'm done. I'm through. I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's going to be outlandish. So let me know in the comments. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more character breakdowns, and enjoy Daredevil Born Again and have a marvelous day.